Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Iron Man Skyrim. Now, this is going to be a completely optional episode, no doubt about that at all. I'm just going to run through the skills, give you a little bit of an idea of where I'm going to be going with them, and give you some idea of what the game is like if you haven't played it before. Now, in the Skyrim We're Done mod, you actually have your stats tied to each other. So, stamina will cause your weapons to do more or less damage depending on how full your bar is. If you lose health, it will negatively impact your spells. So generally, they're all kind of tied together more than they were in the vanilla copy of Skyrim, which is pretty nice. But even so, I'm still going to be ignoring stamina in a large part of the game, and just focusing on magicka, and probably some health eventually. So, now in case you didn't know, one of the sort of quirks about Skyrim is that the enemies and your followers actually level up with you in the game. So, in theory, let's say that you start at level 1 and all your enemies start at level 1 as well, and they all have, let's say, 25 in a, heavy armor, block, and heavy weaponry skill. Now, as you level up, they get, hypothetically again, maybe 3 points in each of those skills. This is the main cause I'm not taking smithing or enchanting. In a vanilla copy of Skyrim, these are pretty no-brainer choices. They give you access to some of the best items in the game. Obviously, you build them yourself. But, yeah, and like I was saying, heavy weapon block and heavy weaponry are possible combinations of the things your enemies might have. Again, back to smithing and enchanting. If you take these early on in the game, they will power level you like nothing else. You'll wind up easily at level 10, not too long after you hit the first town. So, you take those, you level up, you get to level 10, and suddenly you find all your enemies are far more powerful than you. That's why I'm focusing on the spells and stealth classes. Now, next up I'm probably going to be taking Impact, because staggering an opponent is an incredibly useful skill to have. It's just inevitable. You're going to use that. It can't be counted on all the time, but it's useful. And of course, Apprentice Destruction is going to be incredibly useful. And also I'm going to be experimenting with runes and geomancy, just placing the runes. I think having traps in this game will be pretty useful, especially when I'm fighting anything like the Dragon Priests or anything. I'm not sure if I'm going to be taking any Dream Cloth. I'm actually not really familiar with it. It's one of the additions that Skyrim We're Done introduced, and I haven't played with it a lot, to be honest. So next up is I'm going to take Rash Studies, and I'm almost for sure, there's 3 paths here, and I think you would take all of them. But my first focus is definitely going to be on Frost spells. Frost has a latent slow effect, and if I ever have to run away from enemies of any kind, it will be incredibly useful to have them running a little bit slower. Additionally, it drains stamina, which, like I explained earlier, causes your enemies' attacks to do less damage. And as you can see while I'm flipping through these, actually upgrades, these particular skills upgrade, rather. Alright, so I actually haven't explored this high up on the tree before, and when I get here, I sort of take a second to read this. The essentials from all of these perks up at this level is that you pick one element and you stick with it. You can't even summon Atronachs of the other elements. And that, honestly, negates the entire purpose of me being a mage in the first place. The biggest perk of being a mage is going to be my flexibility. If I run into any Dwemer, I'll be able to cast lightning magic, and, frost magic against, normal humans will be incredibly useful. Speaking of conjuration, I'm probably not going to be doing that much outside of the ordinary in conjuration. So all they've done in Skyrim We're Done is they've severely upped the Daedric, potency, appropriately enough. In the vanilla copy of Skyrim, Daedra and all the summonables really were good up until about level 25. And at that point, they just became a waste of magic. Your enemies would be able to kill them really quick, and in this case you can get them all the way up to your level with the right perks. Another reason I'm not going to take that destruction tree that bans me from using any of them that I choose. Obviously, Summoner and Ancient Rites are going to be incredibly useful, just because the more enemies I have, or rather the more allies I have on my side, the better off I'm going to be, especially because I'm sneaking around. I'm going to want to get rid of my permanent allies like Lydia or any hireables as quickly as possible. Next up, definitely I'm going to be taking some illusion skills. to be completely honest, I don't know what a lot of these do. The illusion tree has definitely been changed, buffed, debuffed, I have no idea. But there are some spells and some abilities that I'm actually not terribly familiar with. You know, Calm and Frenzy, that's all pretty standard, but stuff like Split Image, Spectral Image, these are abilities I'm not terribly familiar with. But I do know I'm going to be climbing up the tree to at least get to expert level of illusion, just because being able to turn myself invisible will be a huge bonus. It'll definitely be a get out of jail free card if I can use it correctly, and you really can't cast that reliably without being at least at expert level of spells. Speechcraft definitely has some useful abilities. If you ever are interested in playing this game with all the mods I have installed, you pretty much have to take it if you're interested in doing smithing. Grand Facade is really cool too. It essentially allows you to just blend in with any group so long as you have a cowl that you can craft. All I'm doing in Pickpocket is just going up to extra pockets, which allows me to carry 100 extra weight. Definitely useful because I'm not upgrading stamina really ever. In the sneak tree, obviously you gotta build up stealth. Over here on the left side, if I was a true assassin, that's what I would take, but I'm not really interested in those abilities. So I'm going to instead go with no triggering pressure plates, muffled movements, and then up on this right branch you can already see there's quiet casting, which, any spell I cast becomes silent, which is going to be really useful. Dragon shots become silent. I'm not going to use dragon shots that often, to be honest, but it will be useful when I have to use them. Sneak attacks, 2.5 damage, incredibly useful, and Touch of Calamity will cause my touch attacks to be, have an additional bonus multiplier as well. So that will be greatly appreciated when I can get to that. As for alteration, I don't think I'm going to be doing a lot in either alteration or restoration, to be completely honest. There are some nice abilities in both, but perks are hard enough to come by, especially in, Skyrim we're done. As you can tell, there's at least twice as many perks, and you only get a bonus perk every 5 levels. So at level 5 I'll get 2, but level 10 I'll get 2, but that's not that much. So if I get a bunch of dragon souls and I trade those in for perks, then perhaps I will consider it, but otherwise I'm just going to be sticking to destruction, illusion, conjuration, sneak, and those are going to be my main choices, I think.